Hey everyone, this is Chuck. Had a request to walk through master scheduling in its entirety here. So wanted to put this video together. And what you're seeing on the screen here, hang on a sec here. Let me get the screen share going and then we'll take you through it here. But what you're seeing on the screen here is a master scheduling grid. This is not the same one as we see in our ASCM certification classes. I've changed the numbers so I don't violate any IP property protection rights or things like that. But we can still accomplish the same thing. So what I'd like to do here as we take you through this is define some of the terms first and then walk you through the math as we go through it so you understand everything and kind of what the story is behind it here. So let's dive in by starting in the upper left corner, talking about the definitions. So periods, as you see it on the screen here, this is the time buckets. So you see on top here, I've got time bucket 1, 2, period 3, 4, so on and so forth. Those can be whatever you want them to be. I typically teach them in terms of, those are weekly buckets, but those can be daily buckets, whatever makes sense for your business. Forecast, of course, is the prediction of what we think the demand is going to be, and customer orders are the actual demand. Projected available balance is saying, okay, we're starting out here at time 0 with 50 pieces on hand, so I can actually walk out to the factory probably and find those 50 pieces. We start out with 50 on hand, but what projected available balance is it's saying, look, after all the supply and demands are considered for each period, what do I project the available balance, the ending balance, to be at the end of each period based on planned or predicted demand, the forecast, and the actual customer orders. Available to promise, we're going to come back to at the end and talk about that. Excuse me. Master production schedule is what our build schedule is going to be. So for this item, what am I going to build? And these are typically in due dates, is what we're seeing here. Okay. Another couple things to capture also in this conversation is the demand fence and the planning fence. These are 2 points in time in which decisions get made about how we're going to operate. So typically, to the left of the demand fence, we call this the frozen zone. And so the frozen zone is saying no changes allowed. So we've reached a point where it's too disruptive to change the factory. We're going to tell the customer no changes allowed. If we have to change it, that decision is going to typically be made by a senior level person within the company. What it means in terms of doing the math here is we are not going to be working with the forecast at all. So it's going to be customer orders only. So let me put that up on top here, customer orders only. To the right of the demand fence is typically called the slushy zone, or what I'll call the maybe zone. And so in that time frame, we're not quite locked in. We can still deal with change. If you look at period 5 as an example, I've got a forecast for 21, got customer orders for 7. I'm still open to take more orders up to that 21, and I could even go over it, but I can take additional demands. I'm open to considering moving things in, moving things out, changing quantities, canceling. It's a maybe type question here because I need to investigate it. So let me get back to you. I'll check it out and get back to you, and then we'll figure out what to do. So it's kind of a semi-frozen, semi-liquid, or slushy. It's the maybe zone. Typically then in this maybe zone, decisions where in the beginning here, decisions for changes are by senior level folks. This is typically going to be the master scheduler within this maybe zone. To the right of the planning fence, this is going to be, I guess it's the liquid zone, we call it, or what I call the whatever zone. Make whatever changes you want out here. Way out there in the future, not going to impact us, and it's typically going to be policies that are put in place to make decisions how we're going to handle that. So it's either the senior level person, the master scheduler, or policies that's going to deal with that. Now, while we talked about, you know, the to the right of the demand fence, we're actually going to mathematically use the greater of forecast or customer only. And we will use that same rule out in the planning zone as well. So if we again look at period 5, I'm going to work with the 21 as I work with it because I could get more orders in. So I'll use the 21. It's probably the most cautious position. I could still get more orders, and I'm not put in a position of having to make a mistake. If for some reason, though, on those 7 orders, another 20 comes in and we're up to 27. Now, again, it's a whole separate conversation if should we or should we not have taken orders more than what we forecasted. But from a math standpoint, and probably from a company standpoint, we're going to work with the 27 as well, because we're not going to tell the customer, hey, you can't order that. You didn't forecast it. We're going to look to see if we can accommodate it. So we're always outside the demand fence, going to use the greater of forecast or customer orders. So we're going to jump into the math in here in a second. I did want to draw one thing out to put it in context for us. So if this is my product on the left, A is made up of B and C, B is made up of D and E, let's say. Master production scheduling is scheduling of the finished goods item. So we're going to be scheduling A here. B, C, D, and E are typically handled by MRP, which is something we'll look at later on, materials requirements planning. Both of them look at supply versus demand. Am I short? And if I am short, I have to build or buy something. But in master scheduling, we're looking at the scheduling of item A. So here's how the math works. Let's walk through it. And we start out with 50. And if you find yourself asking already, hey, Chuck, you forgot to talk about ATP, well, that was on purpose. I'm going to kind of hold that off till later. So we got 50 on hand. We look at period 1. And remember, we're inside the demand fence. So it's customer orders only. So I've got 50. I need 19. Am I short? And you and I are going, nope, I'm not short. In fact, I've got 31 left over, which we're saying that's cool. I end period 1 with 31. I go into period 2 with 31, and I only need 17. So again, am I short? And we would say nope. So in my problem here, I'll write it in the upper left corner. Safety stock equals 0. Lot size equals 50. So we've got the customer taken care of. We're not below safety stock. We're good to go. So we go into period 3 with 14 now. I need 15. Am I short? And we're going, yep, I'm short by 1. So I have to schedule production. I have to put together a master production schedule order of 50 pieces because that's the lot size. Now remember, I'm short 1. I think I'm going to be short 1 because again, we're projecting out into the future. Excuse me, I'm short 1, so I think I will have 49 left over. Okay, now let's look at period 4. We're crossing over the demand fence. We're going to use the greater of forecast or customer orders. So I'm going to use the 28 in period 4. So I have 49, I need 28. Am I short? I'd go, nope, I'm down to 21 in fact. And I'd get to period 5 and I got 21 and I need 21. So I've got 0 left over. So I'm not below safety stock. I've taken care of the customer orders. I'm good. Now, this is where you and I get probably a little bit tense because we're saying, well, I know my company here and something's going to sneak in that thing. And so therefore, I better get something coming in on period 5. Well, that's fine. That's okay, because that's why you and I got hired. That's part of our job, is to assess what we're seeing and decide what to do to take care of the customers and to protect the business. So the computer, though, unless you got a safety stock or something, it's saying, hey, I got 21, I need 21, I got enough, I'm not short to the customer, I'm not below safety stock. What's your problem? 0's okay. So unless I've got something telling me otherwise, we're okay with 0 here. It's almost like the literal just in time. So I go into period 6. I've got 0. I need 25. So the system's going to say, well, you better get in 50 in period 6 because that's when you're short. You need 25. So 25 is going to be left over. Okay. Period 7 comes up. I've got 25. I'm going to use the 19 again, like we have been using the forecast, because we're always looking at greater of forecast or customer orders. So I need 25. Excuse me, I have 25. I need 19. I've got 6 left over. Period 8 comes up. I've got 6 and I need 21. So I'm 15 short. So I better get another 50 in. And with 15 short, I'll have 35 left over. Period 9, I've got 35 and need 25, so I'm down to 10. Period 10 comes up. I have 10, I need 25. I'm 15 short again, so I better get another 50 in, and I should have 35 left over. So that's the math of projected available balance, and that's how we determine when we're going to get in these different lots of 50. So I have to do projected available balance first to determine when I'm short, to figure out when I have to build something. And again, when I have to build something, we show in our teaching, this is the due date. We assume it's going to be needed and available at the beginning of the period. Okay, your computer system might have a start date also, and that's fine. This is just how we're teaching based on the grid out here. So let's look now at this ATP. ATP, the way I'm going to ask you to think about it is this right here. Leftover from build to build. Now you're going to find as we go through this, ATP is pretty close or feels pretty close to PAB. The difference is this: projected available balance is looking out into the future and trying to anticipate when I'm going to be short based on forecasts and customer orders so I can get something built. So it's got a little bit of uncertainty. It's trying to project out into the future based on not just customer orders, but as well potential forecast demands, and all forecast demands haven't come in yet. So it's projecting out into the future. Available to promise is a sales tool that says, hey, I got Chuck on the phone here, and Chuck wants 40 pieces right now. He doesn't care about what you may be building or not. He needs 40 now. So how do I answer Chuck? What do I tell him? And that's where ATP comes in. ATP looks at the leftover from build to build based on customer orders only. Customer orders only. So if we look at this grid here, this first 50 that we have on hand, it has to last until the next build of 50 comes to stock. So I'm going to drop an arrow down between period 2 and 3. The 50 in period 3 has to last until the next 50 gets built in period 6. The 50 in period 6 has to last until the 8 comes to stock in period 8. And 8 has to last until period 10. So now I'm looking at this kind of a build to build mentality. So if we're looking at customer orders only, then I'm looking at this first 50 on hand at the beginning and saying, okay, I've got customer orders for 36, 19 plus 17. I've got 36 orders for 36, and I've got 50. So I have available to promise leftover from what's on hand, 14 pieces. Okay? Excuse me. And I stop right there for that part of it. Because we're build to build, we look at the next 50 separate. And so if you follow in periods 3, 4, and 5, I'm going to circle those. We've got 15 plus 13 plus 7 sold. I have sold 35 out of the 50 that are coming to stock in period 3. I have 15 left over in period 3. Again, we're teaching it from a build to build mentality. It's entirely possible and even probabilistic. You've probably got a cumulative ATP going on your computer that's saying, well, you got 15 in period 1, you got another 15 available in period 3. We've got 29 total or cumulatively available to still promise the customer. So you might very well have that on your computer, and that's cool. I just don't initially teach it that way. I want to get you into that build to build mentality. Period 6, I've got another 50 coming to stock. I've got orders for 4 plus 3 or 7. So I got 41 left over. Yep. Out of the 50 in period 8, I've got 1 left over, or 1 sold. So I've got 49 available, and I have not sold any of the 50 in period 10. So all 50 are available. Now I got it blocked out into build to build. And just as a comment, it's always been this way for decades from the way we set it up. We always show the ATP in the very first available spot within that time bucket from build to build. It's just kind of the way we've always done it that way. So now we got this customer, Chuck, who calls up and says, ooh, I got 40, I need 40. How fast can I get it? Well, now, because we've broken it out build by build, we can tell Chuck that, hey, well, I can give you 14 right away. I can give you another 15 in period 3, and the last 11 is going to come out of period 6. Is that going to work for you? Excuse me. And the customer may say, yeah, that's cool. The only reason I ordered 40 was because you gave me a price break at 40. But if you'll hold the price at 40, I can live with 14 and 15 and the last 11 in period 6. Works for me. So, it gives us a chance to manage it. The customer may come back and say, or Chuck may come back and say, ooh, I'm okay with the 14 and 15, but I don't know if I can wait till period 6. Can you get it to me in period 4? So they want to know if they can get it up here in period 4. Okay. At that point, so we've given them 14 in period 1. We told them 15, but they really want all 26 there, and we've only got 15 available. We got to figure out the other 11. So we probably are going to tell the customer, okay, let me check that out. Let me get back to you. And I'm going to go up to my production people, perhaps, and it's not in any specific sequence. I may go back to my production people and my purchasing people and say, hey, can we get in the materials for another 11 in period 3? And do we have the time to do it? If they say, yep, we can do it, great. We get back to the customer, we place the order, we tell the purchasing folks and the manufacturing folks, here's what we're going to do, and we're off and running. If we cannot get all the resources and materials, then we've got to work with sales to say, hey, customer wants these additional 11. Do you have 11 you can move out? So of this 15, 13, and 7, have you got any possibilities of moving out 11 pieces so we can sneak this 11 in? They may say, let me check it out and get back to you, and get back to us and say, yep, we can move out an order. Let's do it. Let's sneak in the customer. Everybody will be happy. Or they're going to say, no, I can't do it, which means then if manufacturing and purchasing can't do it, we're going to have to get back to the customer and say, sorry, we can't. Here's why, and here's the situation. And so we want to fully explain it to them. Hopefully, sales doesn't say, I don't know, not my problem. You figure it out. We've done our homework at this point, and this is a Chuck opinion. We should push back on sales and say, nope, sorry, it doesn't work that way. We've done the homework. We don't have the capacity. Something's got to give. If we're going to build this 11, something's got to get pushed out. Okay. And, don't take the path that says, well, I'll make that decision for you, sales, because that's not right. That's sales' job. We can't violate supply versus demand if we don't have the resources. Point being, that whole conversation aside, is ATP is that leftover from build to build. It allows us to manage the promising conversation with the customer in an informed way. We're trying to solve the customer's problem or need, I should say, and we're trying to protect the company as well and use resources well in that stuff. And this is the tool that allows us to do that. So hopefully this gives you a good understanding of how this scheduling process works, as well as being used ATP as a promising tool.